This is a Planet Pulse special focus on Gemini. I'm Jeff Jower.
And I'm Rick Levine. Gemini is the sign of the twins. Often we think of Gemini as the split personality, but I think it's a little bit more subtle than that. I think what Gemini really has to do with is mutual desires. I want this, and that. I like black and white. The weather is warm and cold. There's the set of the opposites that come up, but it creates like pulls in two different directions, and the Gemini is okay without having to resolve those opposites.
Well, absolutely. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, a planet of intellect and communication, and it's about collecting information. So information is information, and it can go in all sorts of directions. In fact, Gemini, I think, is even more than duality of the twins. It's multiplicity. It's variety.
Walt Whitman.
Walt Whitman, who is a Gemini, said, "Contradict myself? Of course. I contain multitudes." He took the qualities or characteristics that we would think of as scattered and negative, and he gave them a positive spin. And that's an important aspect of Gemini, representing the value of bringing diverse desires, interests, and perspectives.
Now, Gemini, the downside of Gemini is that because it's light and easy and breezy and whimsical, it also sometimes Geminis have a hard time making a commitment because they're committed to this. And that. And that. And that. And the commitments may kind of conflict with each other, but the Gemini doesn't really much care. There's a sense with Gemini of being able to interact with anyone at any time. Think of a cocktail party where there's chitter chatter and noise, and it's not so much what anyone's saying, it's that you're saying this and then that person's saying that, and kind of like just information going back and forth, and it doesn't even have to be useful. It doesn't even have to be true. There's the con artist side of the Gemini who basically will say anything just because they can.
Well, because it's
clever.
Data. That's right. Gemini is, as you said, about just information. It's like a telephone, which has nothing to say on its own, but is a vehicle through which we can pass all sorts of messages. So the great side of Gemini energy is the capacity to be a skillful, successful communicator. But the weakness is that as an air sign, we can be so hooked up, or Gemini can be so hooked up with the sound of ideas that the substance doesn't matter that much.
Isn't there a saying that says, "Don't shoot the Gemini"? or that's the messenger. But you see, Gemini's key planet is Mercury, and Mercury is the messenger. And I think you were right about the telephone, Jeff, that there's a sense with Gemini that it's not about what's being said. It's not even about the medium that's saying that it's being said over. It's just that there is noise, there is information, there is data, and that data, like a telephone switchboard operator in olden times, it's connecting this to that. It's that old game of connecting the dots. I don't care what's on each of the corners of the dots. I'm just going to connect as many of them as I can, and as long as I'm connecting them, I'm doing Gemini's job. That's cool.
Absolutely. And a fundamental idea is motion.
Yeah, restlessness even.
Exactly.
Emotion.
Yes. Gemini is what's called a mutable sign. Mutable signs end the 4 seasons of the year, and they have to do with distribution of energy. Gemini is the mutable air or intellectual sign, which is, again, the early spring, the late spring breezes of ideas and concepts, but without necessarily the commitment to a single direction. I'm Jeff Jower.
And for Gemini, I'm Rick Levine.